going to get straight to the news today as Jonas Schaefer updates us from John Harbaugh's press conference. Broderick Washington underwent Achilles tendon surgery. John Harbaugh said it wasn't a tear, which I guess is the good news out of all this. However, there's no updated timetable on his recovery, but a return is not imminent, per the head coach. The question that I then bring from that news, that announcement, that update, first off, it is a big bummer because you were already light on the interior of the defensive line, and now you're even lighter. But does that mean a trade is coming with the NFL trade deadline just happening in about 24 hours from now? A little bit less than that. Because like I said, you're light on the interior. Nnamdi Madubuike, a guy who was off to an unbelievable start through the first 2 weeks of the season, is dealing with a neck injury. He's out for the season. We don't even know if he's ever going to come back and play football again, given how serious that part of the body is that he's dealing with that injury. And then now Broderick Washington dealing with that Achilles injury, and his return is to be determined. That leaves your interior defensive line looking a little bit like this. Travis Jones, Brent Urban, who you signed in free agency in like late August, Ainias Peebles, who's a rookie, John Jenkins, who you signed in free agency in like August, and CJ Okoye, who was okay. Yay. Nice little pun there. John Harbaugh then was asked if he anticipates the Ravens making any trades before Tuesday's 4 p.m. deadline. John Harbaugh said, no way to know. We'll see what happens. Now, like John Harbaugh always does, this is coach speak, okay? We know John Harbaugh. We know he's not going to lay his cards out on the table. We know he's going to try to keep everything behind the scenes. He could have a trade for Micah Parsons behind his back, and he would say this exact same thing. Now, I know that's not going to happen. That's impossible. But just because John Harbaugh is saying this doesn't mean that nothing is going to happen. Because in my opinion, I look at the state of this roster. I look at the state of the defensive line. I look at the state of the interior of that defensive line. And it feels like there is no way they can't make a move. And maybe I'm alone in feeling that way. Maybe that's a little dramatic that I feel that way. But I mean, come on. We're going to roll the rest of the season with our second best interior defensive lineman being John Jenkins? Maybe Brent Urban? Are we really going to do that? And right now you're sitting pretty. You're sitting at a really good spot. You got 12 draft picks. 5 of them, should be 5 fifth-round picks. 5 of them in the 5th round. You don't need to change your gauge. We can continue on. Cap space from Jair Alexander, $2 million. You got $16 million in cap space right now. So not only do you have the cards to deal for these players, but you got the money to pay them as well. So coming up on today's show, I'm going to give you interior defensive linemen that I believe, because of this news, are on the trade block and might be called by the Baltimore Ravens. This Broderick Washington injury being official and being something that is going to be prolonged, I think almost seals it that the Ravens are going to add something on the interior. Make sure you guys hang out with us, though, tomorrow. We'll be live for the NFL trade deadline. Subscribe, turn on those notifications, and join us. We'll be going live at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Central. It's going to be a lot of fun. Me and Gage live for about 3 hours just shooting the breeze. Hope you join us. And if anything happens, we'll be right there, breaking it down as quickly as we can. Subscribe. It's free. So in the defensive line market, per NFL Insiders, the Detroit Lions, Kansas City Chiefs, and Jacksonville Jaguars. And it's funny because a lot of times I feel like teams or fans of teams go into the NFL trade deadline and all they do is think about all the players that should be available to them, but we rarely think about what other teams will be making other moves. The good news is Detroit, Kansas City, Jacksonville, they're not set up in the same way like you are when it comes to both cap space and draft picks. Some of these teams have a bevy of draft picks. Some of these teams are in a really good spot with their cap space. None of these teams are both like Baltimore. So who's an ideal interior defensive lineman trade target? We're going to start off with a big one. Jeffery Simmons, defensive tackle for the Tennessee Titans. And frankly, ladies and gentlemen, I could not care less about what prior reports have said. I've heard them. You've heard them. The Tennessee Titans most likely are not willing to deal Jeffery Simmons. If I'm Eric DeCosta, let's just act like I don't have any hair. I'm picking up my cell phone. I'm getting Tennessee on the phone as quickly as possible, and I'm saying, hey, I'll give you a second. I'll give you a fifth. I'll give you whatever you want. How can we add Jeffery Simmons to this roster? I think if you add Simmons, that might be all you need. Sure, offensive line can be talked about, but this is a video based on Broderick Washington's injury. It's like, what more could you want than Jeffery Simmons? And his 7 games played, he already has 30 tackles, 4.5 sacks, 8 tackles for loss. The thing that makes him so special is that not only is he unbelievable at stopping the run, like you would hope most interior defensive linemen are, but he's so good at rushing the passer. And in my opinion, he gives Baltimore that edge that it feels like they're missing. That edge that it feels like they're wanting right now. He seems like a guy that's cut from a similar cloth of Ray Lewis. Now, I'm not comparing him to Ray Lewis. I'm not saying he's going to come in here and have a Ray Lewis type impact. All I know is he's intense. He's tough. He demands a lot of those around him. He's a leader. He's a dog. He's what this defense needs, plain and simple. What this defense might also need is something it's already had. Calais Campbell, defensive tackle with the Arizona Cardinals. And I would love a Calais Campbell reunion, okay? I'm just going to go ahead and say this right now. And it's interesting because Pedro Romes, guy who covers the Baltimore Ravens, says being realistic, I think the Ravens are going to reunite with Calais Campbell. So we've got some NFL Baltimore Ravens insiders that believe it's going to be Calais Campbell the Baltimore Ravens reunite with. And maybe it is because he popped up on the Arizona Cardinals injury report just kind of out of the blue just the other day. He doesn't have a game status yet. They're kicking off in about 2.5 hours, 3.5 hours. So we'll see if he's playing or not. If he's not playing, I think it'd be interesting. Gage, we have that quote from Seth Walder loaded up. Should be built. Great. Thank you. If you watch our show on late Friday, Seth Walder, ESPN insider, talked about the Ravens reuniting with Calais Campbell. Here's what he said. He said, how about Cardinals defensive tackle Calais Campbell? We'll just keep his reunion tour going. Bring him back to the Ravens in hopes of reinforcing a defensive line as out Nnamdi Madubuike, now Broderick Washington. At age 39, Campbell is still producing. His 15.4% pass rush win rate ranks third at defensive tackle, and his run-stop win rate would rank in the top 5 among interior defenders if he qualified. Campbell would be a short-term solution, wouldn't require an overinvestment in draft capital or contract that limits the downside in case the Ravens can't recover this season. It would be an obvious reunion. Like, that to me is such an obvious choice if he is available because, like Walder said, you're not going to have to pay him a lot. You're not going to have to trade a lot for him, and you get a player that even though he is almost 40 years old, is producing at an elite level. His grades are still awesome. Overall, pass rush, run defense. He has 12 stops, 17 pressures. He's a lot like Jeffery Simmons in the fact that he can do it all. He can get to the passer if you need him to. He can stop the run if you need him to. And it's funny because even at 39, he is one of the best defenders that the Arizona Cardinals have. Calais Campbell, I will welcome you back to Baltimore with open arms. I want you to name someone the Ravens should trade for down below in the comment section, okay? I've given you 2 names. I'm about to give you 2 more. But I want you to give me one right now in the comments. Coming up, we got 2 more interior defensive line targets that we've got to talk about, we've got to discuss, so don't go anywhere. I got a couple more names for you guys, but I've also got a name that you guys need to keep a lookout on, and go ahead and open your phones, get to the App Store, download. It's our great friends at PrizePicks. They're the reason you're watching today's show. They're the sponsor of today's episode, and they are my favorite things about watching football on Sundays. The hard-hitting football action is even better with PrizePicks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on PrizePicks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. PrizePicks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. You want to pick more on Lamar Jackson's pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns? Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on PrizePicks. On PrizePicks, how you play is up to you. If you want flexibility, choose FlexPlay, where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you want the biggest payouts, go for the power play. No matter your play, PrizePicks is a great way to put your takes to the test. Here's my PrizePicks lineup for Monday Night Football, Cowboys, Cardinals. We talked about flex playing, right? That gives you a lot of flexibility. Hence the name. You can put this 3 in, but if one of them does not hit, you still get paid. So I got the more on Dak Prescott's 268.5 pass yards. I got the less on George Pickens' 64.5 receiving yards. Go ahead and give me the more on Trey McBride, half a receiving touchdown. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. The link to this promo is in the comments and description of today's video. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. How about T'Vondre Sweat, a guy we have not even talked about yet at all on this channel, and I think he could be a very, very intriguing option. Obviously, he's a recent high draft pick, and Dianna Russini knows for a fact that he is getting called on. The players the Titans are fielding most calls on: defensive end Arden Key, linebacker Dre'Mont Jones, running back Tony Pollard, and defensive tackle T'Vondre Sweat. Now, Sweat, he's had a limited NFL career so far, and he's had a limited season in 2025. He's only played 3 games. He has 10 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks. Now, those are pretty solid numbers, right? I'm never going to be upset about a guy getting 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, and 10 tackles in 3 games played, especially from the interior. Like, I've been impressed with what I've seen. There's a reason that he was so highly thought of in the draft just a couple of years ago. I just don't know if Baltimore needs a project right now. Like, if you're going to trade for a guy with limited production, I feel like that's probably going to be an older guy who's been in the league a long time that you won't have to worry much about, like, when it comes to cultivating him and growing him. But if you're willing to worth the risk of it with a guy who's had some injury concerns, shoot, by all means, do it. I just don't know if Baltimore will be. Last up, Roy Lopez, another guy we haven't talked about yet on this show, defensive tackle with the Detroit Lions. And Roy Lopez, based on some latest from some NFL insiders, Eric Woodyard, with ESPN, says the Lions are viewed as a serious Super Bowl contender, and although it's unlikely that Lopez will be traded, he could benefit from a better situation from an individual standpoint. Detroit is loaded with talent at defensive tackle: McNeil, Reeder, Tyleik Williams. Lopez started all of his 16 appearances last season with the Cardinals, but has yet to start for Detroit. This feels like one of those that would be mutually beneficial for each side, right? Detroit Lions get a guy that isn't really playing much. He gets to go play, and you get a good piece that started all 16 games last season. I wouldn't hate this, but in my opinion, like, it wouldn't exactly move the needle. I feel like when it comes to the interior of your defensive line, with both Broderick Washington down for, to be determined, and also losing Nnamdi Madubuike for the season, you need something with a little more oomph, in my opinion, to get me really juiced up and excited about it. Pick one out of those 4. Simmons, Campbell, Sweat, or Lopez. Let me know by typing JS, CC, TS, or RL in the comment section down below. An honorable mention: the New York Jets have been getting calls on Williams. I know we already talked about this earlier today, but I thought it's at least worth mentioning in a video that we're talking about interior defensive linemen. Quentin Williams, Jeffery Simmons, they're in the same category for me. 2 guys I'd give an arm and a leg for to get into Baltimore. That's going to do it for today's show. Make sure you guys got me followed on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Look, again, we're going to be live tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Me and Gage, 3 hours, breaking down NFL trades, talking about Ravens options. It's going to be a blast, and I hope you'll join us.